You know, I've always been interested in tree technology and the advancements in our industry. You know, from the climbing perspective, hell, I go back so far. I remember a friend of mine that was climbing on a manila rope. I tried it once and got slivers in my hand and realized that manila ropes were not the way to go. But anyway, the advancements in all the new technology for climbing has just been amazing, especially in the last 15, 18 years or so. All the SRT devices. But there are a lot of other technological advancements in our industry that are also very, very amazing. And some of the truly remarkable tools that are now available, they go back, let's see, about 25 years ago. The very first one that I remember was called the resistograph. And that was a big box that had a little tiny drilling. It was about an 1/8 inch drill. And what it did was it measured the resistance as it drilled into the trunk of a tree. So if there was some decay pockets or weaknesses or hollows, that was registered on a graph. Well, then they've come out with a few other devices. One was called a tomograph, and I've seen that explained to me. I think that came out about 15 years ago or so. And that's an interesting device. That's where you put nails all the way around the trunk of a tree and you attach electrodes, one here and one there, and they kind of go across from each other. And then they hook up to a laptop, and with a tap of a hammer, it registers the sound waves from one side to the other. And it goes, so in essence, it's kind of like an ultrasound. There's another device that came out. It was called Tree Radar. I don't have a whole lot of experience with that one, and I don't see that being used too often. Now, there is a brand new device that I was just introduced to. And I met a guy yesterday. His name is Evan, and he works for a company that's developing this new device. And I want to introduce you to Evan and let him explain this device. I see this as the future of understanding trees. It's kind of a way to link us to the tree and understand things a little bit more. Check him out. All right, this is Evan. He's a neighbor of mine. He introduces me to his tool that he's working on right here, and this is a magnificent example of a madrone tree on his property. He lives not too far from me, up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. But he works for a company. The name of the company?
Called ePlant down in Los Altos.
ePlant, okay. And this little device here, please explain it to us. What does it do?
Sure. So there's a few functions. The primary one that we started with is it's a point dendrometer. So it measures the radial fluctuations in the size of the tree.
Okay, so that's expansion and contraction of the trunk.
Expansion and contraction of the trunk. Now you think, well, it's going to expand because the tree grows, hopefully, if everything's working right. But what we learned, and is common knowledge-ish in the research community, is that there's a significant contraction phase in the morning and early afternoon as the tree transpires the water from the soil up through the xylem. The sap in the xylem is under tension, and that pulls water from the phloem, which is the sugar outer bark layer, and it shrinks. And it actually contracts and expands usually quite a bit more than the tree actually grows and gets bigger every day. So the signals like goes up and down, but gradually rises if all's well.
And this information will benefit you how?
Well, you can learn a bit about soil water limitations. So anything that's going to influence the sap flow will show up in this measurement. How? Well, it depends how deep you look into it. If soil water is not limiting, like it is likely to be in the case of this tree because it's been around a long time and we've had a lot of winter rain, but it made it through plenty of droughts. So it's certainly not going to be in peril next week. So we can say from day to day that the soil water here is not changing. So that signal in this case is mostly a weather sensor.
Okay.
But as it dries down, the contractions will increase in magnitude.
Okay, so this little unit, the way you explained it to me, has a small built-in solar panel,
Yep.
and it will send the signal every 20 minutes to an outpost up to, you said, 2 miles away?
It's definitely ranged a lot more than that in the past. Through the trees, that will lower it. You never really know, but the range is significant.
Okay, so with this tool, you can insert it into a tree and gather real data continuously. And you said that it has other functions as well. Did you say it has an accelerometer in it?
Yeah, there's a 3-axis accelerometer, and that's useful because it will tell you how much the tree is leaning and how much if there's a change in the lean. Say there's a storm and you look at your tree and you go, hey, was it leaning like that before? I don't know. Well, you don't know unless you measured it before, but if you have something like this, it's easy to tell.
Okay, so if I had a client that had a massive big tree that they were afraid of, and you put one of these on here, could they easily determine if the tree is shifting and ready to fall down?
Sure. Well, the number of degrees where you'd say, this is too much, that's hard to say. But if it's progressively moving in one direction over time and after storms, then you'd probably worry about it.
Okay.
I think the big tree companies nominally would say, a degree, don't do anything. 2 to 3 degrees, that's a big deal.
Okay. So do you also consider soil expansion and contraction due to excessive rainfall and adjustments and then readjustments as part of the equation?
Yeah, sure, but that movement would be not necessarily always in one direction. If it was, that's the same thing. It's root plate
That would tell you that
stabilization.
it's starting to go. Okay, are there any other magnificent things that this will do for you?
Well, it's a weather station too. So in order to learn about soil moisture limitations, you need to subtract the effects of just the weather, because hotter, drier days will cause more significant contraction, just like limited soil moisture would do. So we're working on a system that will account for all of that and let you know sort of what's left, and what's left is soil water limitations.
It's interesting. So I could see this as being really valuable for a nursery, so that they could put these in their plants and have better ideas of if they're watering too much or if they're not watering enough.
Could be, for high value trees and, 36, 48 inch containers, a few $1,000 Japanese maple, maybe something like that. I think the rest of it, there's probably too much turnover for it to be worth that. But
in
the buyer of those trees,
in
for sure.
in specialty circumstances, when you have really high end trees, we have clients that transport full size trees, where they spend tens of thousands of dollars. They bring in these monster trees and they want to protect them. So something like this could give them real time information with a little bit of your education, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so basically this is a service that you offer as well as the price per unit.
Yeah, and it depends whether you're a commercial customer buying, 20s or hundreds of them for large scale deployments. But we just released a direct-to-consumer pre-buy version. It's not due to be out till November, but in that sense you can just get one if you're curious, and then a small sort of household gateway, which would have less range, but it would certainly cover any reasonable sized homestead.
So if somebody wanted a unit like this for a particular tree with the technology involved, what kind of a cost are we talking about?
I think our current pricing structure is $149 or $150 to buy in.
Okay.
And that's reduced from some higher number
And then if you have multiple trees, then there's additional cost per unit.
Yeah, you can just add more units, and I think they're $69 or $79 each.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting technology. You know, I'm so old school, this new stuff kind of throws me.
yeah, I mean, it's
Me, I think I'd just dig a hole in the ground and say, is the soil wet? But maybe that's too basic.
yeah. Well, you know, that can work too. Soil moisture.
I'm being
probes is
facetious here,
something
man.
People use, but
I am intrigued. I am amazed that this technology now exists. And thank you so much for explaining it to me. Anything else you want to add before I shut it off?
yeah, I would say one more. Even if you're not planning on changing your protocol with your tree care, if you're interested in trees at all, looking at the data from these is really, really interesting. You know, look at it for a few weeks. You'll be able to see right when the sun hits the canopy. Dump 15 gallons on the root zone, you'll see it almost immediately. Sun goes behind a bigger tree and shades it, you'll see that almost immediately. It's really fun to just
Wow.
play around with.
Yeah, I think I might have to look into it myself. Hey, thanks, Evan.
Yeah, you bet.
This is not an endorsement for a product. I'm not getting paid for this at all. This is just something that was shown to me that I want to share to my community. And I'm really interested in it. I want to know more about it. They have a website. It's eplant.com. I'll leave a link in the comment section. But I went and checked it out, and I don't know. This might be the future. I mean, connecting with the trees via an app sounds pretty cool to me. Check it out.